They thought I was in the kitchen. They thought the water running would drown their voices. They thought I wouldn't hear. But the truth is, when you've lived nearly 7 decades, your ears grow sharper at the sound of rejection. I was standing by the sink, rinsing a single coffee cup I had already cleaned once before, just to give my hands a reason to move. The sun was barely up. The house was still wrapped in that quiet early morning stillness that only exists before family arrives. Before laughter, before pretending. Then I heard my daughter's voice from the living room. "Don't invite her. She ruins every holiday." The words landed gently. That's what hurt the most. No anger, no shouting, just a soft decision made as easily as choosing what to cook for dinner. My son answered her. I couldn't hear all of his words, only the ending. "You're right. It's always heavy when she's around." They were talking about me, about their mother. I stood there, staring at my reflection in the dark kitchen window. Gray hair pulled back, old hands gripping a wet towel. A woman who had carried them for 9 months each, fed them with her own hands, stayed awake through fevers, heartbreaks, car accidents, divorces, and disappointments. And now, I was ruining their holidays. I didn't cry. Not then. I quietly dried the cup, placed it upside down, and listened as they finalized my disappearance from their celebration. If you stay with me through this story, you'll understand how that single sentence cracked open years of silence, how it exposed buried betrayals, and how it led to a truth none of us were prepared to face. And if my story touches even one quiet corner of your heart, I hope you'll take a moment to like, share, and subscribe, because stories like this only live when someone is listening. And now, let me take you back to the beginning, to the woman I used to be. I wasn't always the inconvenient shadow at the edge of the room. Once, long ago, holidays were built around my kitchen, the smell of roast filling the house, my husband's laugh echoing from the living room, the kids racing through the hallway, waiting for food like hungry birds. My sister seated at the table, telling stories that grew longer and less accurate with every retelling. That home no longer exists, not in bricks, only in memory. My husband passed 10 years ago, quietly, in his sleep. No warning, no goodbye, just a phone call in the dark that rewrote my life by sunrise. After that, something shifted. Not loudly, just slowly. My children visited less. They called less. I began to notice my place at family gatherings shrinking. My chair moved closer to the edge of the table each year. My voice interrupted more often. My opinions greeted with polite silence instead of attention. I told myself it was normal, that children grow up, that parents fade into the background. I swallowed the ache the same way I swallowed my pride. Smiling, showing up, bringing gifts no one asked for, helping in kitchens that no longer felt like mine. Then came the holidays. At first, I still received invitations. "Mom, we're doing Thanksgiving at Jake's this year." "Mom, Christmas will be at my place." I came early. I left late. I cleaned dishes in homes that were no longer mine. Then, slowly, the invitations changed. Dates became vague, times uncertain. Sometimes the holidays passed with no phone call at all. Still, I never imagined I would become the person people discussed in secret, the person they removed from the guest list without ever touching her name. That morning, after I heard their words, I didn't confront them. I didn't storm into the living room. I finished wiping the counter, turned off the water, and walked quietly back into the hallway. My footsteps felt louder than they should have, but they didn't notice. They were too busy finalizing plans for a holiday I would no longer ruin. I went into my bedroom and closed the door softly. Then I sat on the edge of the bed, the same bed where I once nursed babies at 2 a.m., where my husband once held my hand during storms, where I now sat alone. And for the first time in a long while, I felt unnecessary. That feeling stayed with me all day. It followed me through every room, through every memory, through every photograph lining the walls. By evening, I heard the door close as both of them left the house. I didn't ask where they were going. I already knew. They were planning life without me in it. That night, I made myself a small dinner, a single plate, a single fork, and afterward, I took a walk. The air was cold, but not unkind. Porch lights glowed softly through windows. I passed families setting up decorations, children laughing, couples carrying bags of groceries together. I walked slowly because an old heart walks slowly when it is learning to ache in places it didn't know still existed. The street was quiet the night I took that walk, not empty, just quiet in the way that makes your own thoughts sound louder than footsteps. The cold air pressed against my cheeks as I pulled my coat tighter and moved past houses glowing with warm yellow light. I could see shadows through curtains, families moving, children darting past living room windows, someone tuning a radio, someone stirring a pot of soup. A world still turning. Without me, I walked farther than I meant to. My legs hurt, but I welcomed the ache because it pulled attention away from the dull pressure behind my ribs. I found myself passing the old park at the end of the block, the one where I once sat on a cold metal bench waiting while my children climbed and fell, and climbed again. The swings were empty now. I sat there alone and whispered their names out loud, one by one, just to hear them again in the open air. The wind carried them away like they were never meant to stay. When I returned home, the house was dark. Their shoes were gone from the entryway, their coats missing from the hooks. It was strange how quickly a place can feel abandoned, even when your name is still on the mailbox. I made tea and sat at the kitchen table in the quiet, and then my phone buzzed. It was my neighbor, a woman I barely spoke to. Pleasant, polite, the kind of neighbor you waved at and never truly knew. Her message was short. "Are you okay? I didn't mean to see it, but I think you should know." My hands trembled before I even asked what she meant. A second message came. "I saw your daughter earlier today. She was at the community center signing up for something. It had to do with a caregiver group. I didn't mean to overhear, but she was crying." I stared at those words for a long time. Then I texted back. "Crying about what?" There was a long pause, long enough for my tea to go cold. Then my phone buzzed again. She said she feels like she's been lying to you for years. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring up at the ceiling, listening to old familiar house sounds that now felt like strangers. The tick of the radiator, the distant sound of a car passing, the slow hum of the refrigerator turning on and off like a steady breath I could not match. Years of lying. The next morning, I waited. I didn't clean. I didn't make breakfast. I didn't straighten the cushions that never stayed straight anymore. When the door finally opened, I was sitting at the table with my hands folded. They stopped when they saw me. Neither spoke. I heard something last night. I said slowly. My son's jaw tightened. My daughter's fingers fidgeted with the strap of her bag. Start talking. I said. They sat. The silence stretched so far it nearly swallowed the room. And then my daughter began to cry. Not softly, not politely. She folded forward like her body had given up holding everything inside. I didn't want you to hear it like that, she said between breaths. I didn't want you to know this way. Know what? I asked. She looked at my son. He nodded once, and neither of them answered my question. Instead, my son asked one of his own. Do you remember the holiday party 5 years ago? He said, the one at our place where you left early? I nodded. Of course I remembered. It was the year they forgot to set a place for me at the table. The year I pretended I wasn't hungry and left with a container of leftovers they never noticed was missing. You didn't leave because you were tired, my son said. You left because you heard us arguing in the kitchen. My breath caught. I had heard voices. I had never known the words. About what? I whispered. About you? He said. My daughter lifted her head, her eyes red and swollen. We were fighting about whether to send you away. She said. The word felt heavy in my chest. Away? I repeated. To a care home, she added. The room felt like it tilted. You were healthy. I said. I was living on my own. I drove. I cooked. I shopped. I paid my own bills. My daughter sobbed harder. That's what made it harder. She said. There was no reason, except that we were tired of pretending everything was fine. My hands felt cold all at once. Tired of what? I asked. Tired of the sadness. She said, tired of the way every gathering felt somber. Tired of feeling guilty for being happy when you weren't. Tired of feeling like your loneliness was something we had to carry too. Every word was quiet. Every word landed like it weighed 50 pounds. My son looked at his hands. We thought if you were surrounded by other people your age, it might be easier, he said, for everyone. For you? I said. He didn't deny it. And when that didn't happen, when you stayed strong and independent, you decided I didn't belong at all? I said. My daughter reached for my hand. I pulled it back. No, she said. We didn't mean it like that. But that is how it happened. I replied. The room fell into a silence thicker than before. You didn't ruin holidays, I added quietly. You were reminded of what you thought you had escaped. My daughter pressed her palms to her eyes. I never wanted to be like this, she whispered. Neither did I. I said. We sat there for a long time. None of us touched our coffee. None of us spoke again. Some truths do not need repeating. As the days passed, something in the house shifted. They stayed later. They spoke less. I felt like a guest in the home where I had once raised them. One afternoon, my daughter packed a bag. I'm staying with a friend for a while, She said, "My son didn't protest. He watched her go. And then one night, he did something unexpected. He came into the living room where I sat reading and said, quietly, 'I don't know how to fix this.' I closed my book. 'We aren't broken in the same places.' I said, 'That's why it's hard.' He sat across from me. 'I don't hate you,' he said. 'I know.' I replied, 'I just don't know where you fit anymore.' His words were honest, too honest. 'I fit where I always have.' I said, 'In your life, whether you look at me or not.' He didn't answer. Weeks passed. Then the holidays arrived anyway. And that was when they left me behind. Again, the holiday arrived wrapped in quiet. No phone call in the morning. No casual message asking when I would come. No awkward conversation about timing. The day simply showed up, and I was not included in it. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that went untouched for nearly an hour. The clock moved. The world outside moved. Somewhere, tables were being set. Food was warming. Laughter was already filling rooms that no longer had space for me. They left early. My son dressed carefully. Cologne, clean shirt, shoes polished in a way he never bothered with on ordinary days. He stood at the door for a moment, his hand resting on the knob, like he might turn back. He didn't. The door closed with a soft sound that echoed through the house like a long goodbye. I stayed seated. I did not cry. Sometimes the body saves its tears for later. I warmed a small frozen meal for myself, ate slowly, alone. The television stayed off. I wanted to hear the silence fully. I wanted to feel it without distraction. By late afternoon, snow began to fall outside my window. Big, slow flakes drifting down as if the sky itself had grown tired. And then, just before evening, my phone rang. It was not my son. It was not my daughter. It was a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated, then answered. "Is this Mrs. Carter?" A woman's voice asked. "Yes," I said. "This is Ellen. I volunteer at the community center. Your daughter signed up earlier this week." My heart shifted at the sound of that word again. Community center. "She didn't show up today," the woman continued. "And she usually wouldn't miss something like this without telling someone. I just wanted to make sure she was okay." "Okay from what?" I asked. There was a short pause. "It's a caregiver support program," the woman said gently. I felt my chest tighten. "A caregiver for who?" I asked. Another pause. "For a child with special needs." She said. The room felt suddenly very still. "My daughter doesn't have a child," I said. Ellen's voice softened. "She told us her son is 6 years old, on the autism spectrum. She said she's been struggling alone for years." The words hit in pieces. 6 years old, struggling, alone. I didn't answer right away. "I think there may be confusion," I finally whispered. "My daughter never had a child." "I'm so sorry," Ellen said quietly. "Then I may have misunderstood." "No," I replied. "You didn't misunderstand." My hands began to shake. We ended the call with soft apologies on both sides. I sat there staring at the wall long after the line went quiet. 6 years. 6 years, placed side by side with 5 years ago. The holiday party. The kitchen argument I wasn't meant to hear. The sudden distance. The heavy silence. The shifting of my place at the table. My daughter had a child, and I had never been allowed to know. The thought settled into me slowly, like winter filling the space between tree branches. I sat through the rest of the evening without moving. My holiday meals sat untouched in the sink. The snow thickened outside. The sky turned dark. Near midnight, the door finally opened. They returned louder than they had left, laughing. Voices lifted with food and warmth and shared stories from which I had been erased. They stopped when they saw me sitting in the dark. My son spoke first. "You didn't turn on any lights," he said. "I didn't need them," I replied. My daughter noticed my face, the look in my eyes. "Mom, what's wrong?" I stood slowly. "You have a 6-year-old child," I said. The room went silent. My son turned to her. My daughter's face emptied of all color. "Who told you?" she whispered. "The truth always leaks through," I said. "It finds the cracks." "You went through my things?" my son asked. "No," I replied. "A stranger did you a kindness you never could." My daughter began to cry again, quietly at first, then fully. "I didn't know how to tell you," she said. "When?" I asked. "When he turned 7, 8, when he no longer needed anyone." She slid down onto the couch, covering her face. "He's different," she whispered. "The world isn't kind to children like him." "And you thought I would be?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, I thought you would love him too much, and that would mean I would have to admit I wasn't enough." My son stared at her. "All these years," he said quietly, "you never told her?" "You helped me hide it," she replied. He didn't answer. "Where is he?" I asked. She lifted her head slowly. "With his father," she said, "in another state." The room felt like it tilted again. "You sent your child away?" I whispered. "I didn't abandon him." She cried. "I made a choice. I couldn't handle it alone." "And you handled hiding him alone just fine," I said. That night, no one slept. By morning, I had packed a small bag. "Where are you going?" my son asked. "To meet my grandson," I replied. My daughter looked at me with terror in her eyes. "He doesn't know about you," she said. "I know," I answered, "but I know about him." And that was enough to begin. The drive took me across 2 state lines. I hadn't driven that far alone in many years. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter with every mile, not from fear of the road, but from the weight of what was waiting at the end of it. Somewhere ahead was a child who carried my blood, my daughter's face, my husband's eyes perhaps, a child who had lived 6 full years without ever hearing my name. The sky grew heavier as I drove. Clouds thickened. Rain began softly, then harder, tapping against the windshield like nervous fingers. I kept thinking of every holiday I had been told I was difficult, every gathering where my presence felt like a burden. All those years, a child had existed somewhere beyond my reach, and I had not even been allowed the comfort of knowing. By the time I reached the address my daughter gave me, my hands were trembling. It was a small house, plain, quiet street, toys scattered in the front yard, a tricycle on its side near the porch. The light in the living room window flickered from a television inside. I sat in the car longer than I needed to. Then I gathered my courage and stepped out. The door opened before I could knock. A man stood there, early 40s, tired eyes, a kindness in his face that surprised me. "You must be her mother," he said softly. I nodded. I couldn't speak yet. He stepped aside and let me in. Inside, the house was warm and softly lit. The air smelled faintly of soap and macaroni, and something sweet baking in the oven. A child lay on the floor near the couch, moving small toy cars back and forth in straight, perfect lines, not looking up, not speaking. "That's him," the man whispered. "Evan." My legs nearly gave out. I moved a little closer, slowly, careful not to startle him. He didn't glance up. "He doesn't like surprises," the man said kindly, "but he feels when someone is gentle." I knelt on the rug a short distance away, close enough to see him clearly. Dark hair, long lashes, a crease between his brows where concentration lived. "That crease," I whispered. "She had that as a baby too." The man gave a small, sad smile. "She talks about you sometimes," he said, "when she calls." My heart twisted. "What does she say?" "That you're strong," he answered, "that you wouldn't understand." I reached out slowly and placed one finger on the rug between us, not touching him, just near. "I don't need him to understand me," I whispered. "I only need him to feel safe." After a long moment, his small hand slid across the rug and rested against my finger. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I cried without making a sound. That was how I met my grandson. No grand moment, no announcement, just two quiet souls touching worlds for the first time. I stayed with them that night. In the small guest room, the man made tea. He spoke gently. "She visits once or twice a year," he said, "always in a hurry, always carrying guilt she doesn't know how to set down." I stayed silent. The next morning, my daughter arrived. Her eyes went straight to me, then to her son, and she broke. "I didn't want you to see me like this," she whispered. "I didn't want him to grow up unseen." I answered. She dropped to her knees beside him. He barely reacted, used to distance, used to short visits. "You let me think I was unwanted," I said, when the truth was I was simply kept away. She cried into the carpet. That conversation broke. Something open that could never be closed again. Old resentments, old fears, old failures spoken aloud at last. Before I left that town, I hugged my grandson for the first time. He allowed it. That alone felt like a miracle. But when I returned home, everything fell apart. My son wouldn't look at me. "You went behind our backs," he said. "You built walls around a child." I replied, "I simply walked around them." The shouting that followed carried through the house like thunder, years of quiet resentment bursting all at once. Accusations, justifications, regrets too heavy to lift. By morning, my daughter left again, and my son packed his bags too. The house fell silent, not abandoned, but emptied. I sat in the quiet for days after that. The same chair, the same window, the same ticking clock. I wondered if love always came with such a cost. Weeks passed. Then my phone rang. It was my daughter. Her voice sounded smaller than I had ever heard it. "He asked for you," she said. I didn't hesitate. I drove through the night. There was no fear left in me now, only a steady purpose that kept my hands firm on the wheel and my eyes open even when my body begged for rest. The road felt familiar, even though I had only traveled it once before. Some roads recognize you after the first crossing. When I arrived, the sun was just beginning to lift itself over the houses. The street was quiet again. That same small house, that same tricycle, now tipped onto its wheels instead of its side. The door opened before I knocked. Evan stood there. He didn't speak. He didn't smile. He just looked at me. And then, without warning, he stepped forward and wrapped his arms around my legs. Just once, briefly, like a question he was brave enough to ask, but not yet ready to answer. I knelt down and held him gently. Inside, my daughter sat on the couch with red eyes and trembling hands. "He asked where you went," she said. "He doesn't usually ask about people." I didn't respond right away. I just kept holding him. That day I stayed, not as a visitor, not as a guest, but as a quiet presence beside him. We stacked blocks together. We listened to music he liked. We watched the same short cartoon 3 times because repetition calmed him. I learned the rhythm of his world without trying to change it. My daughter watched from a distance. That evening, after Evan was asleep, she sat beside me at the kitchen table. "I was afraid you would take him from me," she whispered. "I already lost you once." I replied, "I will not lose another child to fear." Her lips trembled. "I didn't know how to be a mother to him," she said. "Every day felt like failure." "Every mother feels that way," I answered softly, "even when the child is easy." She cried then, the kind of crying that finally releases something long trapped behind the ribs. I hid him because I was ashamed. She admitted, "There is nothing shameful about loving a different child." I said, "Only in hiding that love." The next morning, my son arrived unannounced. He looked worn, older, as if the years had finally caught him. He stood in the doorway watching his nephew line up toy cars in careful, perfect rows. "He does that for hours," my daughter said, quietly. "I know," my son replied. "I used to stop her from letting him do it." She looked at him sharply. "He needs it," I said gently. "It's how his mind rests." For the first time, my son nodded instead of arguing. That was how it began. Not with apologies, not with long speeches, with small understandings. Days turned into visits. Visits turned into weekends. Weekends turned into a slow return of family that now knew what it had nearly destroyed. Evan began to recognize my voice. He began to sit closer to me. He placed his head on my arm once while watching television. I stayed perfectly still for 40 minutes, afraid that movement would break the moment. My daughter learned patience she had never allowed herself before. My son learned silence. We all learned that love does not always arrive in the shape we expected. One evening, we sat together on the porch as the sun went down. "I told you once you ruin holidays," my daughter whispered. "I remember I said I was wrong." "I know," I replied. My son looked at me. "I didn't know where you fit anymore," He said softly, "I fit wherever you dare to let me." I answered. He swallowed hard. That winter, we spent the holiday together. Not loudly, not perfectly, but honestly. Evan sat between us, lining up ornaments instead of hanging them. And we let him, because it was his celebration too, even if it looked different. When it was time for me to leave, he followed me to the door. He didn't hug me, but he handed me one of his toy cars. I accepted it like a treasure. Now, when I sit alone in my old living room, I am no longer empty. The holidays still carry echoes, but they also carry footsteps again. If you stayed with me through every quiet moment of this story, thank you for carrying it with me. And if these words touched something in your heart, a memory, a regret, a hope, I invite you to like this story, share it with someone who may feel forgotten, and subscribe so more gentle stories can find their way into tired hearts. Because even after exclusion, even after silence, even after pain, there is still room at the table.